Hi there, and welcome to Monkey Channel with me, the Jonin Monkey, reviewing whatever comes to my head, because the rabbits told me to. Yeah, I know I said this was supposed to be a weekly series, but what can I say? Real life suplexed me, like it always does. So to make up for it, this show is going to be a recap / review of episodes 12, 13, 14, and 15. We've got a lot of ground to cover, so I better not waste any time. In the last episode, we talked about Aztec Warfare, which saw Sexy Star surviving the 20-man brawl to become the new Lucha Underground champion. And I raised a question of how long Sexy Star's reign as the champion would be. Turns out it was only a week. Yeah, Johnny Mundo used the Gift of the God spell to challenge her to a title match, and once again he used his teammates, Taya this time, to knock her out and get the win. So, the lying, cheating, cowardly heel Johnny Mundo is now Lucha Underground champion. A fact that no one is happy with, especially Dario Cueto, who has not only arranged the Battle of the Bulls, a tournament that gives the winner a title shot, which is still ongoing at the time of recording, but he also told Sexy Star that if she could defeat PJ Black one-on-one, spoilers she does, she would have the right to face Johnny Mundo in a cage match for the Lucha Underground Championship. If it sounds like I'm uninterested in this feud, it's only because I am. Yeah, it's the championship, so it's kind of a big deal, but the thing is, I've been thinking over the past 4 weeks why this feud has left me cold, and I've realised that it's because there's no character to this feud. The characters are doing the same things they always do. Sexy Star is bullied and refuses to give up in the face of adversity. Johnny Mundo is a coward who lies and cheats his way to victory. You could literally swap out one of the opponents and the feud would be unchanged. And the fact that both matches came down to Sexy Star being knocked out by Brass Knuckles is not only repetitive, but frankly ridiculous. I mean, don't get me wrong, those Knuckles hurt, but Sexy Star's biggest victory before the championship was a no-mask match. A match which was being hyped as the most violent women's match in history, to the point where even at the moment of victory, Sexy Star was bleeding from the head. So unless it's suddenly revealed that Brass is Sexy Star's kryptonite, I'm having a hard time believing that's all it takes to take her out. By contrast, one of my favourite feuds going on right now is Killshot vs Dante Fox. Firstly, the backstory of these two characters are intertwined. They are both former soldiers and in fact comrades in the same squad, but Dante Fox hates Killshot because he believes that Killshot left him for dead. But what makes it even more interesting is the fact that the dynamic is constantly changing every time they meet. After his initial surprise attack, Killshot tried to defuse the situation by going, "Okay, look, I understand why you did what you did, but honestly, I hope we can put this behind us because I'm just happy to have you back." And to his credit, in a 5v5 match, when it looked like Marty the Moth was about to KO Killshot, Dante Fox leapt into the ring and stood before Marty in order to protect his fallen comrade. For 5 seconds, then he slammed his face back into the floor again. So now that Dante has drawn a firm line in the sand and smashed Killshot's face into it, the two of them had an epic one-on-one battle that showed us just what these two could do, and although Dante Fox did win that battle, it was a very close contest, and Killshot now knows that he cannot treat this like a regular wrestling match. He has to treat it like a war. It's a feud between two wrestlers that are great to watch and is continuously evolving every time they meet, so you can understand why I want to see that one continue, and I'm not interested in a static, boring, repetitive feud for the championship. Honestly, the only thing interesting about the Mundo Star feud is what is going to come afterwards. Mundo is already on edge because he knows that Angelico is gunning for him and he's only managed to buy himself some time with a restraining order. I'm not kidding, that is an actual plot point. And he's starting to get shirty with his Worldwide Underground teammates, calling them losers for being unable to defeat Sexy Star in their one-on-one matches. Which is ironic because Johnny couldn't beat her without their help. So he tells them that they have to start winning Battle of the Bulls or he's going to kick them out of the group. This results in PJ Black tricking Jack Evans out of her place in the Battle of the Bulls final. In other words, cracks are starting to develop in the Worldwide Underground. Hopefully cracks big enough to shove people's faces through. Whilst that's going on, someone has decided to bully Sexy Star by leaving a spider in her locker, and she is not happy. She decides to question her former rival / tormentor Mariposa. Sorry, read that wrong, let me try that again. She grabs Mariposa by the neck and slams her into a wall, screaming about how she will break her, but Mariposa points out the obvious. If she was gonna leave something in her locker, it would be a butterfly, since, that's her symbol and everything. In other words, the case is still ongoing. I don't know if any of the wrestlers on the roster use a spider symbol, so I'm guessing it's either someone who knows who Sexy Star is, or it's hints at a new wrestler entirely. Either way, I suspect it's gonna be a lot more interesting than the championship feud. Now I know what some of you are thinking. If Dario was keen for Johnny Mundo to not be the champion, why doesn't he just set Matanza on him? Well, he tried. The problem is, ever since Rey Mysterio broke his winning streak in Aztec Warfare, Matanza has been fixated on him, desperate to have another match against him. Dario tries to convince Matanza to join the Battle of the Bulls, and eventually he uses the argument that one of the competitors is El Dragon Azteca Jr., he's Rey Mysterio's student. Unfortunately, this backfires as Matanza knocks him out, grabs the key, and breaks out of his cage. And even though he's not a legal combatant in that match, he charges into the ring and starts throwing Azteca around like a ragdoll before Dario can finally regain control over him. After the match, El Dragon goes to see the still injured Rey Mysterio, and now says he understands what Rey's been training to fight against. Unfortunately, El Dragon Azteca Jr. is the Sasuke type, so despite Rey's desperate pleading to wait until he's recovered, El Dragon tells him that he is done listening to Rey. It is now time for him to start his own legacy, and he will do so by ending Matanza's life. You are so dead, Azteca. All kidding aside, I do like this storyline and it makes the most sense. Having Matanza be fixated on Rey and Azteca is a great way of writing these two out of the main storyline and preventing them from going after the championship. I will agree with some people that Matanza breaking out of the cage is mysteriously glossed over, but I'm hoping it's something that will come back in future episodes. As for the battle between Azteca and Matanza, the optimist within me wants to see El Dragon Azteca Jr. get his first big win, but the cynical half of me wants to point out that I don't think El Dragon has ever had a single victory without the help of either Rey Mysterio or Prince Puma. Speaking of which, I'm happy to announce that Prince Puma has been able to fight off the temptations of both Death and the WWE. Yeah, it turns out Vampiro resurrected him like we all thought he was going to do, and he's now going to show him the guidance of the dark arts. So I'm guessing he's going to come back as some evil dark version of himself, but only time will tell. Speaking of reinventions, remember the undercover cops I mentioned in my introduction? Well, they've now split up. No, not like that, although I can understand why I might think that given Joey's outfit, but no. Joey has decided to become a literal bad lieutenant by joining up with Dario Cueto, the guy he's supposed to be investigating. And on top of that, he ratted out his former partner, Cortez Castro. And after Dario was finished giving Cortez an extremely painful severance package, he returned to his boss, who, despite his misgivings, pleads with him to stay on the case and tells Cortez to go back to the temple as a new man. But as well as reinventions, we've got 3 sets of new wrestlers to talk about. The first are the White Rabbits, a semi-comedic, 100% psychedelic triple team led by Paul London. Does anyone actually know who he is? I'm still new to wrestling, so I've no idea why the commentators are freaking out. Next up, remember the Black Lotus ninjas from Aztec Warfare? Well, we now know their names. Doku, Yurei, and Hitokiri. Oh, quick side note, a commenter in my last video mentioned that it was a bit awkward that Japanese characters were included as part of a Chinese triad. Well, thankfully the show is acknowledging that they're Japanese rather than pretending they're Chinese, so I'm just going to write it off by saying that either they were adopted into the triad or the triad is much bigger than we first thought. Regardless, because Black Lotus also works as Dario Cueto's bodyguard, he gives her the homecoming gift of a gauntlet match against Pentagon Dark, meaning that we get to see all three of these wrestlers in action. And admittedly, Doku didn't get to do very much before Pentagon defeated her and broke her arm, but Yurei and Hitokiri quickly became some of my favourite wrestlers in the roster. Yurei was pulling off these incredibly athletic moves, and throughout the entire match she had this cocky, almost sadistic smile on her face, which made her a lot of fun to watch. By contrast, Hitokiri was a stone-cold warrior who took no prisoners, and she pulled off some incredible stunts. Not only did she survive a pile driver onto concrete and being choked by a camera cord, but she also slammed Pentagon into the same concrete, reversed his pile driver, and she became the first woman in Lucha Underground to perform a flying attack from Dario Cueto's office. And at the very end of the match, as revenge for breaking up her feud with El Dragon Azteca Jr., Black Lotus broke Pentagon's arm. And then El Dragon Azteca Jr. arrived, only to break Pentagon's other arm. This dose of revenge served with a side of irony is so sweet. Finally, you remember Cobra Moon and Drago? Those two fighters who got taken out in 2 minutes at the end of Aztec Warfare? Well, there's been a complicated storyline between those two. See, Cobra Moon started off as this slightly creepy looking side character, and she's now been promoted to Queen of the Snake Tribe. And throughout this season, Cobra Moon has been stalking Drago, trying to convince him to come back to the Snake Tribe, calling him one of their greatest generals. But would you know it, Drago is making a big thing out of this little tiny detail that he was a slave for the Snake Tribe, not a willing soldier. But Cobra Moon does not take rejection well, so she arranged for a one-on-one match between her and Drago. And it looked like Drago was about to win, but then she called one of the other two generals, Pindar, who burst into the ring and started knocking the stuffing, or maybe that should be Scales, out of Drago in the middle of the ring. But Drago was then rescued by his trio champion teammates, Phoenix and Aerostar. But they don't have long to celebrate as Cobra Moon summons the second and last general, Vibora, who walks into the ring and holy crap, when did this guy get so big? Seriously, I think this guy's even taller than Matanza, and that's impressive. It makes sense that the believers start calling him Luchasaurus, and it also makes sense that he is able to pulverize both Phoenix and Aerostar with little to no effort. And once he's finished, at Cobra Moon's command, he throws Drago's lifeless body onto his back and carries him out of the ring. Needless to say, I'm a lot more invested in the Snake Tribe plot now. Lucha Underground has always been good at establishing new villains, and whilst Pindar is okay, Vibora is an incredible presence, and I look forward to seeing him in action. So yeah, a lot of interesting things have been happening in the temple recently, and I'm now more excited than ever to see how things play out. Whether I will talk about it next week or do another mashup episode like this, we'll have to wait and see. I've been the Jonin Monkey, and until next time, cheerio.